just say right now.
It's a shell game, but I mean.
Right. But what I'll tell you is that there have been a number of amendments filed for consideration this week that spend additional dollars on local aid and other things.
Right.
And I think they're done in anticipation, because obviously we don't have the dollars to do it as the budget comes out of the Ways and Means Committee. So they're done in anticipation of some revenue increase. And my sense is, we're gonna debate that tomorrow. We're gonna debate all the revenue amendments tomorrow. And whatever the result is, we'll have all the other amendments to think about how to spend it. And it's unclear yet what's gonna happen. I would predict that if new revenue is raised, some portion of it will go to local aid. I don't foresee a scenario where we raise new revenues and nothing goes back to mitigate the cut, for instance, in unrestricted local aid, or the elimination of the pothole fund, or the reduction that we have in our version of the budget on sped circuit breaker, which is pretty dramatic, down to 30% reimbursement, Chapter 70 to some extent. So I can't envision.
Well, all of those things that you said probably would be restored to some degree.
To some degree.
To some degree. How much of the, let's assume that it's the sales tax figure that's going to be compromised on and agreed to, how much of that funding do you think would be allocated towards those types of programs, which again would come back to the whole board?
I can't responsibly say that, Steve. Until we get into the debate, I do not know.
It wasn't in the Democratic caucus today, so we couldn't tell where that money had to be allocated to.
Well, the Democratic caucus today couldn't even agree on which taxes to raise, just so you know. It's gonna be as much akin tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon to a free-for-all as I think we've seen on the Senate floor in a very long time. So I wish I could tell you, A, how much will be generated, and B, how it will be spent. As we sit here tonight, I cannot. And I wouldn't venture a guess because it wouldn't be responsible.
I would like to thank both of you for joining us this evening. I know you have busy schedules and in the midst of what's going on. Well, we weren't expecting good news so much as getting some answers or explanation of where we are and where we might be going, and help us along our plan as we lead into a town meeting here in a few weeks.
I'd like to thank you for the clarity.
The timeline they set out.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's redundant to say that we appreciate the relationship that we have with you. And in difficult times, there's more of a premium on that than even before. And we will continue to come back to you with what we have. We will give you the information that we have. And we also want to receive information from you, as you have been giving it to us through Greg about the municipal relief package. So we'll come back again. We want to continue to talk with you, and we'll try to get you through email, as we both do, as much information as we can in a timely way. And we're always happy to come and talk.
Well, thank you.
Like I said, hopefully we'll have a much better idea on the bookends of local aid. Maybe by Wednesday, because I don't know if they did like the House did it. Local aid was one of the first things that could take it up after.
We're anticipating
Obviously, the biggest thing that gets restored.
We're anticipating being done with the entire budget by Wednesday night, Thursday at the latest. It's easier when there's less money to spend. You don't have as much time to argue, need as much time to argue.
Well, again, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad, I only have one copy of this. Memorandum. I could later tonight forward you the link.
You can just copy and give it to us. Good night. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Can I copy this and I'll get back to you tomorrow?
Oh, you can have it.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Stats?
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. We've been playing telephone tag, Sean, but this is catch-up time. You've all received the memo that I sent you. I tried to make it as inclusive as possible so it could answer as many of your questions and concerns as possible. It started out after our budget hearing in January, and I met with the church on the consolidation of the polling locations, and nothing would be practical to go any further if they didn't agree, and of course they did. They are very willing to cooperate with the idea of it. The church has always been a good friend to the town, and we've had a good relationship as far as the polling locations there. So that has always been an excellent relationship ongoing. But as you can see from the rest of the memo, the police did have a lot of safety concerns and parking issues, as did the fire department. There's no question that consolidating all of the polling locations into one building would be ideal in so many ways. It would even benefit the election workers because they would have a self-support network right there in place. It would be very convenient and timely for the DPW crew to set up in one location versus several, especially during winter setups when snow and other emergencies come to play. It would allow me to just go to one polling location to address any issues, and of course, if it would work out to be cost-effective for the town, it would benefit the town to have that in place. The police addressed a number of issues on the outside areas of the parking lot, the configuration, the access, and their concerns are basically because of the configuration that is stacked parking at the church facility. It would not lend itself well for public safety purposes to the type of activity that an election would have, where people are coming and going at different times versus all of the attendants at a church gathering coming at once and leaving at once. And so their concern is with that type of traffic, with people weaving in and out, trying to leave. And one of their suggestions was that if this plan was undertaken, that the east side parking lot be divided down the middle to create basically just front-end parking on both ends, and that as you come around the normal way through the parking lot at St. Teresa's, you would park diagonally into one of these slots. If there was nothing available on this first end, you would actually swing around and nose in again on that side. And you would have to go around again to get out of the parking lot. In addition, the rear parking lot could be utilized. However, it is much more distant from the actual polling entrances to make it somewhat practical, especially for perhaps the elder population that would not want to walk there. If you've gone through the back too, there is the possibility of using the rear entrance doors of the newest addition, not Father Lane Hall itself, but the addition of these classrooms that they have there. But it does dip down, and again, it is you would be having pedestrians, voters, sometimes mothers and their children crossing the vehicular traffic path. And that's where the public safety concerns come in with the police department, and the idea of having officers on details in the parking lot, at the Route 62 exiting area, also watching out for pedestrian traffic crossing by the Stop and Shop parking area into the church lot. And if the rear parking lot were utilized, there would be, I think, the need for a public safety officer out there to be careful of the vehicles and the pedestrians crossing, and especially during the peak hours of the morning polling times and the evening polling times. Does anybody have any questions on that, or do you understand what the issues were there? Sean?
Barbara, currently at St. Teresa's, how many detail officers are on during an election?
One covers 2 polling precincts because they are contained in the same
So if we had
room.
4 precincts at St. Teresa's, and you use the 2 rooms that are currently used but divided in half, you'd still only need the same amount of detail.
We would just need the 1 officer inside under the law. Now, chances are that during an election like a presidential, I would opt to have a second duty officer there because of the activity that's generated.
So once
But
every
under
4
the
years.
law, we would be covered still because it's one location.
So the issue raised by the police, we currently have that issue in terms of voters crossing vehicular traffic.
because the entrance is used on the parking area used on the west side, voters are crossing vehicular traffic to enter into vote.
Well, at this time, we don't have the volume of cars using the parking lot as we would if we combined all of the precincts.
Well, I would imagine the safety concern is there regardless of the number of vehicles, because it only takes one
Yes.
vehicle to cause an accident.
That's true.
So the police haven't raised this previously.
Yes, it has been. During the busy elections, I have called for traffic details. I have a traffic detail at every location
Okay, but
during the evening hours at
but
the
you-
least.
Your memorandum doesn't factor that in when you
It
need to
doesn't,
call.
because
Okay.
that is across the board. That would happen across the board. It's happening already. I've done that at every presidential election. So I'm
You
addressing.
would have that in each presidential election,
Yes.
you call in a
Extra
detail officer
detail for
at
traffic.
each polling place.
Yes.
So if we were to do it here, you'd call in one versus calling in three.
Well, you'd have the one on Route 62. We would still have one in the parking lot and one at the rear of the building.
Well, I personally don't see the need for one on 62, because the volume of vehicles leaving that parking lot at any given time would be considerably less than vehicles that are leaving there after a mass on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I don't see any detail officers there on a mass on a Saturday or Sunday when there's hundreds of cars leaving that parking lot. Correct?
That I can't be aware of. From time to time, I have seen a police officer on duty there. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was for. I don't attend the church, so I don't know.
But I know on a regular basis, there's not a detail officer
I will,
directing traffic, either vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic, when there's quite a bit of cars to park in Stop and Shop and walk across 62 to go to church, St. Teresa's.
well, these are their concerns, which are in the memo that
No, I understand.
I've given you.
And I respect what Sergeant Romeo has put here, but I don't feel that that's a need, given the amount of vehicles that would be leaving at any given time. I think that's an over concern on his part in that area. Likewise, concerning what the fire department has recommended, a detail officer, certainly during a mass, there's many more people, and more of a likelihood to have some sort of emergency with the numbers of people in the church during a given mass versus the inflow and outflow of voters in any given day. So I don't really see the need to have a fire detail there for an election.
Well,
And obviously,
these-
the cost goes down considerably if you eliminate a police detail on 62, a police detail on the back of St. Teresa's, and a fire detail.
Yes, it would, definitely. These are their recommendations. They're basing it on, their professional experience. I know that in the past, there have been stories that I've heard in the news, and I'm sure you have too, accidents happening in polling locations because of the traffic, that's generated, and the mixture of vehicles and, people walking in these areas. When all of the persons entering and exiting at the polling location there do cross into the line of traffic that, the vehicles that have to enter the parking lot. So they're right in the path. We have had issues. The officers on duty have addressed it with me where persons who are exiting Father Lane Hall, as you exit, you're in somewhat of an alcove where you're not visibly apparent to the drivers as they're coming down the travel lane. And as you step out into the visibility area, a car is literally right on top of the persons there. They can't see them.
But that's an issue we have regardless of if we have
Yes, it is.
two
You're
precincts
just
voting
going
there
to
or if we have four.
right, but you would just compound it, and I believe that is probably what their considerations are. It is an issue that exists currently. We have utilized a sign at St. Teresa's to try to ask people to slow down. You put signs up, you put a lot of everything that you can possibly think of to do to address it, and sometimes it's never enough. I can understand that. I think that what everybody's trying to do is just to make sure that, we look at all of the issues, we take the necessary steps, if this is going to be, to make sure that all of our